Welcome to the Field of 68 After Dark's YouTube channel. We are going to be live every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube and on Stadium for the entirety of the spring. Kentucky has landed a player that is not an incoming freshman. Mark Pope was able to get a commitment from Colin Chandler, who was previously committed to him at BYU. That was last week. Over the weekend, he got a commitment from Travis Perry, a local Kentucky kid that probably wasn't going anywhere other than Kentucky. Fingers crossed. Maybe he ends up being the next Reed Shepherd. Who knows? But the big name that they landed was Amari Williams, transfer from Drexel. And a question I got, I was actually hit up by a buddy of mine who is a big Kentucky fan, and he basically said, if Mark Pope is supposed to be this guy that plays this 5-out style, pace, space, we want shooters everywhere, we want passers everywhere, we want all this, why did he go out and get a guy that is one of the best defensive players that doesn't really have range outside of wherever he can dunk it from? Talk to me about this Amari Williams commitment to Kentucky and what it means for Mark Pope.
Well, yeah, that's not Amari Williams' strength. He's not a guy who's going to step out and super skilled in the offensive end. He's not even a guy that you could throw it to really in the low post end. He's really good defensively, really good passer for a big, runs the court well. All of that. Here's what I think Mark Pope was probably figuring out at this point. Like, I need a big. There just aren't a lot of those skilled bigs out there right now in the portal, Rob, because those guys go to the NBA right away. Right? They're not hanging around college. Those guys are one and done, a lot of them. So to me, most of the bigs that you have in the portal right now are that type, right? Like, I mean, great Osabor, right? I mean, he's not nearly as big even as Amari Williams, and they're still in the equation for somebody like him. But, you look at some of these bigs, Jonas Adu. It's not, again, if they're that good and their upside is that high, they're not sticking around for another year. They're lottery picks. So I think really Amari Williams will help in a way, again, that what he is at least is he's a guy who can move the ball and find open shooters. And if you surround him with 4 guys who can make shots, listen, Mark Pope's team is not going to look like it looked at BYU. He doesn't want it to look like it looked at BYU. He wants some athletes to be able to mingle in and put in there with some of these shooters. He doesn't want a team full of, honestly, 5 white dudes that aren't athletic, that can shoot it and can't really beat guys off the bounce.
Yeah, and what I'll also say about Ali Khalifa is he played 19 minutes a game last year. Part of what his value is being able to be a different look when Fousseyni Traore wasn't out there, right? Like a lot of the Fousseyni Traore played 18 minutes last year. Ali Khalifa played 19 minutes. Fousseyni Traore is much more in the Amari Williams role in terms of being a guy that is kind of stuck in around the paint. He's not as good defensively as Amari Williams is. And I'll also say that smart, creative coaches have figured out ways to be able to use non-shooters to create space. One thing that we saw UConn do really well last year, and anybody that watched Dan Hurley's interview with JJ Redick will be very well aware of this, but using big guys as screeners and using them off the ball to be able to kind of create space in different kind of actions. And I guarantee, I promise you that Mark Pope has watched enough of what teams do with like Rudy Gobert in the NBA, what UConn did with Donovan Clingan and what UConn did with Samson Johnson last year to be able to allow them to run the offense that they did with a 5-man that was offensively not going to step away from the basket all that much. So I'm not worried about it. Having a guy that can be an anchor defensively, even if he plays 20 to 25 minutes a game, there's quite a bit of value in the league with as many good, talented big guys as the SEC has. It'll be really interesting to see how the rest of this roster kind of fills out. Like I feel like we keep having stuff to talk about with Kentucky, but a lot of it is just like, okay, they're getting a visit from this kid. They're still in the mix for this kid. So I think in the next probably week to 10 days, we will find out a lot more about what Kentucky's going to end up being and whether or not they can land some of these players. Thanks for watching the Field of 68 After Dark. Make sure to hit that like button.